The Crash Course Live is presented by
Smash It Demolition Derby, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at SmashItDerby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, host of Maymania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at StirringDirtRacing.com.
Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt.
Oh man, that wasn't good.
First day running a new show.
I wanted to talk about all the different changes and stuff that have been happening here, and for whatever reason, when I hit the unmute button, nothing unmuted. Starting off well. I think we fixed some of the issues that we ran into last week, which was fun. We got to change some stuff on the Finger Lakes One page, and we're trying to make things more unified and streamlined here at Finger Lakes One, so that the look and the presentation, everything for everybody is a similar, I guess, a similar viewing experience as a whole. So we've been working on trying to get that together. I missed Jim today because that was one of the things on the to-do list for this Monday. Actually, it was on the to-do list for last week when we found out that there was some stuff that needed to be tidied up on our end. And then we were hit with, I don't even know if this winter storm got a name.
Oh, I'm sure it did. Because everything gets a name nowadays.
But, yeah, that got a little bit intense. So Thursday, Friday, everything around here was shut down big time.
I mean, I know, I realize that, you and Melissa both work in education, and God knows Melissa was ready for a break, but I mean, dude, why did they cancel anything Thursday? Like,
you want to know why? Do you really want to go
Yeah.
down this rabbit hole? I'll tell you why.
Yes.
Because if, God forbid, those buses were out and travel was slow, the same people complaining that teachers is the biggest profession that never wants to go to work would have been complaining because their little cherubs were delayed by 45 minutes, or... And this one is a serious, God forbid. I jested the last one. I'm serious on this one. If the weather was bad and those kids had to cross the street and the roads were as slushy and sloppy as they were at 3:30 and 4 o'clock when I was out, they were glazy. They weren't slushy. They were glazy. And for some reason, that kid went to cross the street. Once the kid leaves the bus, they're no longer protected by anybody with the school. It's all up to fate, and somebody could have gotten hit. And I get it.
But it didn't even start snowing until...
What do you mean? Like,
it's crazy. It's just like
I thought it was interesting that all the calls home all talked about out of the abundance of caution and stuff like that. And they were trying to
and I understand. I mean, I would never want anything to happen to kids. And in all seriousness, teachers deserve all the time off they can get. That's a different story. That would be a different podcast.
That would be a different podcast. Yes.
But
safe bet.
It's crazy. Like, when we were kids, like you really had to get a lot of snow to get time off, which by all means, Friday was a real winter storm. I mean, that was impressive.
If everything had stayed on course time wise, the way that it was supposed to, I think it would have been a much different story. And if it was arriving when it was supposed to, I figured that we would get socked and be sent home early if we went at all on Thursday, and then maybe see a delay or something. But we got more snow than I think that we were expecting to, and then coupling that with the fact that it shifted forward so far, it ended up it snowed later into the day Friday than it was supposed to. But I mean, you know what? That's what the meteorologists are there for, and I'm not one of them.
It's crazy. Like, I talked to different people around the state, and like I talked to Gully, and all he got was rain. Didn't get any ice, didn't get any snow. I talked to Corey Relier, and they only got a couple inches. I know up north they got pounded pretty good. I know Saturday we went and picked up Zach had been looking for a new car, and we got him he got a new car. So we went and picked that up Saturday in Rome, and they had even more snow than we did. I mean, it was neat to see all the different areas. They got different stuff, but
we
Chris is trying to figure out what's wrong with my camera. That's why he's got the 527 unified points up. And as I'm speaking, he's standing in front of me trying to get a camera to work. Which, I mean, if we're being honest, it's not a big deal to not see me. But Yeah, no, I mean it was impressive to see the snowstorm. I'm not gonna lie, Zach ended up coming home Wednesday night because the college is planning on canceling Thursday and Friday. So, I'm not gonna lie, whenever he can come home, especially early, it's a good thing for us. Nick was happy to have a couple days off, so it all worked out in the end.
But we were back to Monday at school today, boy.
Yeah, I bet it was. I bet after 4 days off, it was a happy day at school.
It was generally, if you're complaining about your teachers having a day off, your teachers of your child are probably home pulling their hair out most nights that they do have school because of that same person's child.
Yeah, it's.
I was thinking about your mom and dad on the snow day, thinking about, wow, if they had social media, what would they say? And I was thinking about your teachers. Most of them have social media, and they would still be saying the same thing. And probably you would have been one of the problem child sorts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy. No, they, it's like I said, it was definitely worth the day off Friday. But
I got a new shovel.
How'd it work?
It was good.
How'd the back feel afterwards?
It was much better. It was much better. Our driveway was poured in sections, and it was poured in sections in probably 1972. So there's some frost heaves and some different uneven spots that are in there. So trying to run the shovel across it itself, it got a little bit hairy. But I was trying to get one that just had that weird S bend in it, and nobody had any because everybody else.
I got two. You should ask me.
Everybody else plans for a snowstorm, and I react to a snowstorm. But I went to Tractor Supply, and I now have the Cadillac of shovels. But it worked. It worked pretty well because we had a lot of snow to move.
Oh yeah. Well, it was funny. Thursday night, Crystal's cousin Mike came out and plowed, and like I said, it had started snowing. I don't know, probably 2-ish, maybe 3-ish, and it wasn't a lot, but it was just steady, a nice, beautiful winter night, for Christmas Eve or something. And so Mike came out and plowed for us the night before, and then it really snowed all night into Friday. So I'm up Friday because I was off, and Zach gets up. He's up for about 2 minutes. All of a sudden, I hear him clomping around in the kitchen, puts his hunting boots on, his hunting coat, and I hear him fire up my truck. And I'm like, well, he's going to go clean out the driveway. By cleaning out, I don't mean using a plow. I mean running up and down it, spinning the tires and throwing snow all over. I just sat there laughing because, that's sort of the thing I probably would have done, something like that. So it was funny. But, we definitely got a boatload of snow.
Yep, we did. Mark Elliott, I was trading some messages here with him. I don't know if you're following along with Mark. He's been pretty family focused here the last couple of days, and there's some really scary things going on for him at home. So hopefully everybody does okay. We're thinking about him. He sent me a link that if we're going to talk about anything with the Unified Point Series, we got to remind everybody that the apparel campaign is coming to a close, and that was always very successful in years past. And he sort of feels a little bit like he left that stone a little bit unturned. So I put the link in the comments. I put it on my page, put it on the Crash Course page. So please, if you take a moment, think about it. If you got a couple spare bucks to buy a shirt or buy a hat, get out there and do it. I saw Toast had a birthday over the weekend, and then Jill Lancaster, she had a birthday over the weekend. So that was
Mrs. Magician.
Yes. I miss them, man.
Yeah, we had some fun with Chris and Jill up in Winter Slams. We it seems like at Blizzard. I mean, we've hung out with them a little bit at Blizzard Bash. Just everybody's usually so busy that after the first night of running,
if you're gonna hang out with anybody, you need to do it after the heat draws.
Yeah,
or another time.
Yeah, yeah. Once the show starts out there, there's not much for hanging out.
No, this it was really an interesting weekend as we worked through all of it. Some odd paths ended up being retraveled, and I ended up reconnecting with Hank Pensek and Josh Buell for a little bit, just talking a little bit about the cars and everybody that used to run the box cars and the really interesting thing, especially with the conversation with Hank, and that was probably more geared towards Chad Ellman historically than anything. How many cars are still out there in Dunkirk that ran and were successful, that they were good cars that maybe never got finished, I guess you could say. Like I knew that there was some cars that never died. You know, the one that comes to mind is the one that Art Seeley and then Kevin Seeley and one of the Robinsons and then one of the second generation Robinsons all drove that black Imperial that has the gold top on it. To rewind and give everybody the base of all this stuff, the 65 Imperial has been added to the Realistic Derby project and is getting closer to release. It's not done yet, but it's getting closer. So the conversation, one of the groups that I'm in, were who are the popular boxcar drivers, and Rick's car came up, and his car is going to be in it, which
awesome.
Is really cool. I mean, I can't even put into words how cool it is that Rick's car is going to be in a Derby video game, and it's going to be a box car. And we got some clarification on some lettering on some of the details of that car. The yellow one. When I talk about the yellow one, it's the one that he had bellied on both ends. Mm-hmm. I'm sure people have seen the pictures. I know most of the cars that he ran were yellow, but this specific one was...
Most of them were bellied on both ends.
Well, that's pretty fair, too. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn with this. I was just so happy to hear about that, and we got some of the details and some of the fine... Because handwriting with a spray paint can is a little tough.
Sometimes.
But, in addition to that, there was some other great names that were being kicked around, but just like we've done before, I wanted to take some of the guys that were close to us up here and do one of those free skin packs as well when the time comes, because it would be really nice to have some of the work done ahead of time instead of waiting for this car to come out. But
it's always better to react than
yeah, kind of like with needing a shovel in a snowstorm. But in any case, I went to try and find some of the pictures, and it appears that the hard drive that has most of the event pictures and most of the raw footage has failed or is having some problems from 2011, 2012, 2013, and part of 2014. So I can't access any of that stuff anymore. So I was going through Facebook and going through my Facebook pages, the Smashed Empire page, some of the Derby Inc. pages, some of the Derby Inc. files, to try and find some of that. And I was hunting around specifically for one of the cars that Todd Elman drove at Dunkirk, and I think it was his F1 car from 2014. That was the car that he bought from Rick. That was one of the last Imperials, one of the boxcar Imperials that Rick had, and Todd bought it as his feature car for Dunkirk the year following his win. Dunkirk's got this weird numbering system. I don't know if you've ever followed along with that, but the A cars are 4 cylinders, the B cars are 6 cylinders, C cars are mid-size cars, D class cars are tilted Fords, and then the E class cars are full-size old iron. And every one of them is said to be built to the county fair stock rules, but a lot of them are, approaching 4 metric tons.
Might be a little more than stock built.
Yeah, but with that, those cars are always virtually indestructible. It is no joke that Seeley car. I sat down with Kevin and with Art one time, and we ran through the count. And when I say runs, I mean individual heats. So through Dunkirk, if you don't qualify on Tuesday, you have to run again on Wednesday to try to get there. So a single car could amass 3 runs in a year, but we still came up with 14 total runs.
That's awesome
on that Imperial. So that's going to be out there. And in talking with, and in going through some of the old folders that I had, I knew that I had pictures of Chad Elman's Imperials, and I didn't remember him running many. It was always Todd that was really solid on the Imperials, and then Jimmy was big on the GM stuff. Jimmy had a lot of GM sedans and GM roundbacks, and Todd even had a couple tilted Fords, but they didn't fare as well. And Chad had these 2 Imperials. They were always already well past used anyplace else. But then you can just get the welder out and say, Hank, make this work, and
Hank will make it work.
but at least one, if not two of those cars was still around up until like the last year, which just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And this, I'm talking about my first trips up to Dunkirk were 2011, 2012.
10 years ago.
And those cars were hard up then.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, like nowadays, we talk to guys in the Midwest, and they run their
6 tons. Hank said it was 6 tons.
They run their, they run their Fords that are full welds, and they run them for a season, and then they just put them out in the weeds until they need them again. And I mean, that's, kind of like what you're talking about in Dunkirk. They, run them till they need them again and bring them back out and add a little more weld, a little more steel, and away you go.
Well, Wreckfest, I just saw Wreckfest, which is another one of those Midwest promotions, and they just said this year that they're going to be pre-run cars built to 2021 rules are going to be able to participate in the first three shows of the Point Series. Otherwise, you had to build new cars. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is an opportunity to wear that stuff out. And, I mean, if anybody's ever had a chance to meet Hank, I think we can talk about Hank in a first-name reference, and everybody's going to know who Hank Pensek is.
Oh, yeah.
In some far reaches beyond just what we've got here. Hank is a waste not, want not type of guy. if there's something to be saved off a car, I'm pretty confident.
Hank's gonna do it, yeah.
But the whole thing is sitting there. So we got talking about Chad's cars, and I was just in disbelief. And at one point, he told me the story about the green one. It was this like John Deere tractor green, and it had the white door. And it was one of the best pictures I had of Chad looking through the window of the car. You could actually see him. Mm-hmm. And I guess they dropped off a bunch of box tube and put the car in. And the bodies were just falling off of this thing.
It's great.
And they said, make this thing work, and that's how we brought it back. But I guess Chad's daughters, if I understand right, didn't want to get rid of one of the cars. I can't remember which one. So there's this deal about horse chestnuts. There was horse chestnuts in the car. You had to clean all the horse chestnuts out, but I guess the girls kept dumping more horse chestnuts into the car, so the car couldn't go away.
That's great. Yeah, it's you messaged me last night. We asked about an Imperial, and I started thinking. The first Imperial I took to Waterloo was a '64, and she was a little punky here and there, and I didn't fix the rear frame. Anybody who's built one knows what I mean. And I ran it in the heat, won my heat, but it bent in front of the rear tires. And I remember we fixed it for the feature, and that was an old school Waterloo feature. And I took 9 or 10 door shots. I had a bruise covered most of my bicep. But I ended up burning up a tranny. But that one was junk after one run. 2 runs, heat feature. And then that was a 64. I think it was either 65 or 66 that I won with at Waterloo. That was a heat and feature. And then I took it back the next year, ran a heat. I can't remember what happened, but I didn't make it through the heat, and I had to run the Conci. And then I made it to the feature, and afterwards I was cooling the motor off, and I got the air cleaner wet, and went out in the feature and got down to like third, and it sucked the air cleaner shut. So there was 3 runs that night. And then I think the third year I ran it, I won my heat, went out in the feature, and battled with Nick Nicastro down to second or third with it. So I think I got 9 or 10 runs on that. And that was, the only thing I did to that was after the first 2 runs, I put a bumper on the front of it. But other than that was I didn't even have spreader bar. We didn't run spreader bars yet back then. They were just fun to run, and then I ran a third 64, and
now I keep thinking your other 64. I remember on qualifying, it was either the qualifying heat or it was the qualifying night. You went nose to nose with somebody right at the start finish line, and their car set. And it seemed like I seem to remember that car looked like it was a really, really dark green.
Yes,
with white lettering on it.
Yep.
And that was the hit that broke the transmission saddle. That was the second 64.
Yes. Yep. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, I hit somebody nose to nose, and it broke the the bolt actually that holds the saddle in that broke off. So I took that one home, fixed it, brought it back. So I ran that. That one only ran once that year. And then the next year I brought it back on Wednesday night and won my heat. That was with when all the Orange Crush was there. They all showed up. They had that. Remember, there was a Plymouth wagon. Harry Kopp had I think it was a Buick. Rob Kopp had I think Rob had a red Buick.
They were all orange that year, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like
I don't think Rob was orange though. I think there was.
He had a blue Cordoba one year. It said Orange Crush on it. It was real confusing to everybody.
Yeah. But I went out and won the heat that year. It came down. I know I hit Rob towards the end of the heat and broke his tranny. But then I went out in the feature, and that was the one where I went out in the feature and the transmission was slipping. So I'd hit somebody and have to get pushed off, and there wasn't many cars running. Mike Hagedorn, I think it was, had a Plymouth wagon, and he was at the far end where it would be the south end of the track. And I just saw him moving back and forth like this, hitting somebody.
That's the same place where you took out all your aggression on Toby Wise, right? That part of the track?
No, that was right in front of the starter stand. But I seen this orange wagon just moving back and forth like this. And I knew my tranny was smoked, so I just held it on the floor and hit him in the driver's side rear tire at about 40. And there we sat. But so that one I guess I got 3 runs out of, maybe 4. But yeah, there's, but I never, and it's hilarious, but the only car that I kept hanging around because I never really had any place to run it again was the car that I won my first Derby with. Mm-hmm. That was a 70 Imperial. I took it to Waterloo. Float stuck in the heat. Went out in the Consi, and this was when they had 40 cars in a Consi. Mm-hmm. And on the last, I hit the guy last, and they threw the checkered. Well, I broke the guy I bought it from had put another rear end in it, and it was the pads that sit on the springs were junk. So I let the rear end do this, and it broke the universal. So I took it home and fixed that. Then I went to Brewerton and won with it. And then it sat in my dad's garage for years. Then I ended up finally selling it. Yeah. But I just never, you know what I mean? I never.
So it was sold.
Yeah.
Not even like it got bored of it and it was crushed. It was sold.
I sold it. And I think it ended up because I sold it to Aaron Kasaya, and I don't think he ever ran it. I think it ended up somewhere in Pennsylvania. But yeah, that was the only one I really held on to for very long.
And some drivers don't have the luxury of hanging on to a car for a long time because they don't have the space. They don't have the drive. I don't think anybody will be surprised to think that maybe Chuck Bowman hasn't held onto a car for years.
No, no, that's for sure. He gets done with them and they go right to Luffman's.
But there's another one like Zach Herman. Stuff doesn't.
No.
Stuff doesn't rust once he runs it.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
But then you go to the flip side, like Rob Ewer. I mean, there's pictures of his Blizzard Bash team car from years prior, and they're making all these plans where they're going to add material to it because they got to get the driveline out of it. And we've talked to the Frericks about that. We've talked to a bunch of almost all of the Midwest drivers that we talk to now have 2 or 3 good engine setups, engine, transmission, drive shaft, rear end setups.
Yep.
And once it's in a car, it's there until that car's used up. But the car's usefulness may extend past its
what you wanted
value.
To.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, you get out west and where they can add all the fix-it plates and they can do this and they can do that and they can run that. It's hard to bend a nose out there. I mean, it really is. We see it at Blizzard Bash, but things aren't normal at Blizzard Bash. It's
a different world.
Yeah, sort of a. But I mean, and it's. I've never had it, but I'm sure it's probably hard to just scrap a car with the nose as straight as the day it came off the assembly line. You know what I mean? And you can still go out there and just drive with it. But when there's the farthest thing sticking out the back is the rear tires, and it's you're bouncing stuff off your tank protector. Then do you keep running it? Do you cut it up? Do you? So it's.
Well, you can always get out there in front of the part that's starting to roll up and cut that off and keep that part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. But
We've
no,
heard tell us such things.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you go to some of these shows and you see cars show up for the feature, and you're like, man, I don't know if I would do that, but who am I to judge?
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating. You know, I'd love for the chat. We got some people that are hanging out with us here tonight, and appreciate it. Christy and Devin, they were down in TJ's neck of the woods. I don't know if you saw that. They were doing a little bit of traveling. They were down there.
Oh, really?
I fully anticipate that there was a trailer and it wasn't full of vacation gear. Devin's got some big plans, you know.
Yeah, I've read that on a few sites that Devin's going to be doing some building and some traveling this year. That's pretty cool.
But that's another guy that I don't think they get the opportunity to hang on to a car long.
Not usually, no.
It's more just to show off for the neighbors, right?
Yeah, that car shows up, there's a show, good stuff goes out, and it goes to the scrapyard. But no, it's, you know, and that, I mean, I guess, like, locally, you know, I don't think many people have had that, you know, because, you know, for generally, New York builds aren't that heavy. And generally, New York guys junk stuff.
Our area here, it's not that heavy. You get further out east of here, Brookfield area, the wheel days is.
But they still junk stuff pretty quick.
Right. You might get a little bit of longevity out of it, but it's nothing like what we're talking about.
No. Rick Engelhart wasn't going to run an Imperial 12 or 14 times. No. That just wasn't going to happen.
Nope, and neither was anybody else that was on the track with him.
No. And but you know, and I mean, we've talked. You know, Rick is one of our all-time favorite guys who's gone way too soon. But I mean, that crew out there. I mean, you went to Brookfield and there wasn't any slow heats. I mean, it wasn't just Rick's heat; it was all the heats are like that. You know.
No, unless anyone be confused that we are lovingly gushing about Imperials in terms of the fast heats. The 4-cylinder heats were just as good.
Oh, gosh, yes.
They were terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason why it was a better decision to ride with Jeremy Gully in a Dodge truck than it was to go in a 4-cylinder heated wheelbase.
Yes. But, you know, I mean, but there's, you know, in some of the shows now, you know, you can build a little more. But, you know, for the most part, guys in New York just drive hard and junk stuff. I mean, we don't, you know, there's even the stuff that's built harder. I mean, we talked about it. You know, when the one year they had the heavy build at Waterloo, which Matt Gaskin Jr. ended up winning. You know, it was the only car that came out of that was ran again was Pete's, I believe, and Pete's was welded well. He ended up, and that, I mean, he might have, you know, tore that up some more.
That's the modern heavy build. We're not talking about the mod class.
No, back in the day. No.
05, 06, 07.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, it's, you know, we seen them, King's Old School, when they had their first show, you know, they had the kicker class, and most everything that came out of that class was junk.
So, I'm glad you brought up King's of Old School. Jimmy Ellman had a 4-door, I believe it was a 4-door GM. Cadillac, maybe. I can't remember. Hank had his hands on it. That car's still around. And that was 7 years ago.
That's crazy. Kings of Old School was 7 years ago already?
Kings of Old School, the first one, would have been 2014, wasn't it?
Holy cow. That's crazy. That's moving in a decade ago.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep. We got some comments coming in the chat, which is always good. Scott Kiefer, 2 years. He had 8 runs on a 78 Newport. Tommy Woodbury, he kept a few pre-runs 4 or 5 years, but ended up scrapping them because the cars were plentiful, and I wish he wished that he had kept them. And now that brings about another point, like you were talking about with. Oh no, where'd the mouse go? I got to try and get it on me for a moment. So you were talking about cars that last forever, and you can't really make good sense of sending a car to the junkyard if the nose is still as straight as it ever was, and also think about what you paid for it.
Yeah.
Different way back, when $50 roundbacks were driven to the junkyard because they needed plug wires, I believe is how the legend was told, or shockers or what have you.
Yeah.
So that's a different world too. And I mean, imagine if if you could go back into the metaverse and find those cars and just tell yourself not to scrap them or whatever. Hank says 12 to 14 years, I still have half of my flat top wagons. Half of the flat top wagons. So, let's peel some layers off of this. Hank had a green wagon that had a message painted on it. I believe that this, and I'm trying to remember the lineage of this car, because this car had some history to it as well. Hank drove that, and he had a message painted on the bumper of it, and it resulted in somebody ended up not running that night because they knew what was going to happen. So this green wagon, I think, was Mikey Riddle's. Mikey Riddle won the fair with this green wagon, and now this thing is like this dark green, and Hank drove it, and then he drove it again, and he drove it again, and then it didn't have a roof on it. The thing was just mashed flat, and the back had turned so much that you could see the leaf springs starting to splay apart, right? But it was still straight-ish. You know what I mean? Like that weird in-between where I can probably add more metal and be okay, but I'm not sure if I want to, and if it doesn't work, is this really safe? But it's Hank.
It's Hank.
What's going to go wrong? So then AJ's first full-size car, I believe, was that same wagon.
Really?
And and I think somebody else drove it. And so if he says that he still has half of the smash top wagons, does that mean that he ran 12 and kept 6? Or does that mean that he just kept the parts that went bent? You know, just
that could be it. That could be it. That's crazy.
But it's just fantastic that kind of, I am all about history. If anybody doesn't know, like I get real nitpicky when people say that they've restored a car, and I get nitpicky when people say that they have it's the car that Maynard Troyer, blah, 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 blah. Is it, though? Like, is it because you had a piece of frame tube and restored it around it, or was this actually the car? You know, we get into a lot of this history stuff in drag racing, because drag racing cars can last a whole lot longer than circle track cars.
Yes.
The likelihood of it getting torn up is significantly reduced compared to the circle track stuff.
We learned that from Jeffy.
Right. And that's why it's easy. And the technology can adapt, and then there's all these different classes and stuff. So the only thing that really limits a drag racing car historically is the cage being appropriate for the speed that you're trying to license at. And that brings about a whole different, long and involved conversation. I still don't fully know, because I figure if you're doing 200 miles an hour, does it really matter what the cage is? When you come to an abrupt stop.
It's the part inside that doesn't stop abruptly. That's the bad stuff. But
wait a second. Okay, so Tommy would race scrap both of his bash cars because he had no place to run them. So again, availability. Eugene Williams has a 65 Imperial that he has run 40 plus times now and can't find a place to run it. Tony Burkhart. He's in Vegas. 40 times. And if that car isn't the Enforcer or the Iron Maiden, I want to see a picture of this car.
No
you know
doubt.
What I mean?
No
this
doubt.
thing has got to have a turret on top and run on tank tracks.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. I remember back in the day, Harold Benjamin had an Imperial called our Old Blue. And he run Waterloo with it, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 times, one with it. But I mean, he took it all over. If Mark was on, maybe he could tell us how many times he ran it. But that was, a very light build. That's how everything. Well, in theory, it was a light build back then because there was that time that Mark bought that car that had all the mud in the frame. So we won't go there, I guess.
Going back to the fast compact heats and the good speeds. Those guys are always fun to watch, and they would wreck everything that they could. Just I believe the term was mock chicken. I heard that one. So Hank is going to use it to fix his first bash wagon, and that was 8 years ago. So he might still have that green wagon that we were talking about. He was watching. I wanted him to come on, but he's got to work at the fire department. So I think as we get a little bit closer to the likelihood of Dunkirk not being buried in 4 feet of snow in the snap of a finger, we get out of winter a little ways. We're going to try and talk Hank into coming out here, and we'll kind of do this again a little bit. But cool. The weekend was just too good. In terms of the retrospect to not dive into a little bit. And I wanted to get some of the feedback from some of the folks that listen. Like right here, 2009, one Vic was run 9 times. It was called the World Tour. It was Tony Burkhart's car. It was also had a little bit of a reputation to be a one-hit quitter, which is that's never a good thing. But
Rick Clark just jumped on. He's got some trucks that I know he's ran a bunch of times.
yeah,
He's got a Suburban that I can't tell you how many times that thing's ran and won. So, but up there, I mean, it's like a deep freeze in Canada. You just put them in a block of ice, and when they thaw out, you run them again. They don't rust. Life is good.
I got some comments as well. I probably should have had this up and been looking at it. Oh, Al Crockett, he just sent a picture. It's his first Imp is going to be run this year. He's got a 66. Looks like it's a four-door black one. I saw him loading the pictures.
Chris is checking some messages.
Yeah, trying to catch up on everything there for a moment. So, in the midst of talking with Hank a little bit and talking a little bit with Jay Tweedy, because I figured Jay would remember a lot in terms of what was on Rick's car and the reasoning behind what was on Rick's cars. I sent a message to Josh Buell. Josh was always fun to watch, and he would bring stuff that was designed. You know how we always joke about Fords, the back ends for defense? Josh didn't need defense because he was just going forward all the time.
Yeah, true.
And watching some of the old videos and stuff from Wheel Days, it was just so much fun to look back at that. So one of the free packs, one of the skins that are going to be in that free pack down the line is going to be one of Josh Buell's cars from Wheel Days. He had a 64 that he liked. He liked the 62s and 63s, he said, but unfortunately that's not in the game yet. But I remember he had an awesome run at Fulton against Donnie Hartzell's subframer. That was the car that Donnie won the last mod show at Seneca County. There was only like 3 or 4 cars at it. Remember, I think Roger Matthews came, and maybe it was Richie or Jim Beatty. There was a green Fury that had a subframe in it, and then there was
Is that the year Beatty ran Brett's Orange Imperial from when they went to Ohio?
It might be, yeah, it might be. I seem to remember that, and Donnie ended up winning it. They went nose to nose, and
yeah.
I thought that it was the end of Donnie. I thought he was coming out of the car when he did that. And then that car is like Beetlejuice. If you talk about it too much, it shows up places. Yeah. And that car ended up going to Fulton and having some success there. And I still can't believe that car's still around. You know, that still is tucked away in the mothballs, just waiting for a chance to go work again.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's funny. The first mod show they ran at Waterloo, Rob Kopp had put an Imp under Y-frame Mopar and ran it, and just that car was tough. And then Brett Raleigh bought it, and Brett ran it a couple times. I know the one time I said something to him when he talked about it was when he cut his finger real bad and then got hit with the water.
Right.
That was the car he ran there.
That was the same car?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything left. I don't know if he still got it, but I know that had sat around for a while because there was quite a bit of time between the first mod show at Waterloo and then the time he ran it down to illegal. So I don't know if that's still around or if that's went to the scrapyard.
But in talking about that, and you know, now we're gonna change course and go back to the Wheel Days conversation about how we weren't just talking about Imperials, but now we are. You think about Hippie. And he had all those subframers, Brian Molyneux, and the name that caught me,
Mike Beers.
You beat me to it. That's the name that had escaped me in all this conversation about that. So I anticipate that there will be some representation of his cars out there, and then you start thinking about what the Ingrams and the younger Ingrams have been able to accomplish running the Imperials. You know, trying to adapt things for what we've learned now in terms of the sciences and angles and different stuff with the Fords and some of the Cadillacs and stuff. And they've been doing work with Imperials as well. So, and those guys have cars that stay around. They might be ripped to shreds, but they find a way to patch it together and they bring them back. It's really cool that, you know, and I get the necessity breeds innovation. Imperials aren't made anymore. You're
No.
not finding them
No.
laying around the way that
Used to,
that
no.
it used to. So you got to kind of get the mileage out of it. So all those factors considered, what you paid for it, can you scrap a car that you paid that much for? Can you scrap a car that's still straight? And how easy is it to replace it is another factor in the midst of all this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's another car. I was just thinking about it. That first mod show, the car that Brian Wise won with, he sold that to Richie Predmore, and Richie got multiple runs out of it. The car that Brian Wise won the first mod show with at Waterloo, the box frame,
Right.
he won with that and then sold it to Richie Predmore.
Really?
Yeah, and Richie got multiple runs out of it. So, I mean, that thing had to be built well because Richie's sort of hard on stuff.
Sort of. So Ed Fahey, Imperials had an interesting run in Europe. So that is something that we're going to talk about when we do our Across the Pond special, which we had all these plans that we were going to try and map stuff out. Then you had to go, and then we got hit with a storm and stuff. We didn't get the conversations the way that we wanted to. But we do need to figure out a time that we're going to be available on an afternoon on the weekend or something where we can get in here and get Ed on a Zoom call or something so that we can talk to Ed. What are things like over there? Because it's been fun to learn a little bit from the ships and from Brandon when he went from here over and ran and gave us the full report, the full rundown over there. But to dive a little bit more deeply into that, I think it's going to be fun.
Yep, for sure.
Butch is fixing his relic car for Bash.
Yeah, I see that.
What are you fixing?
I thought he used that up pretty good. What do I know?
Why not, though? Why not? Oh, let's see.
You probably got some bills to pay, right?
It's getting busy. I kind of got lost in the nostalgia of everything and running through the pictures, and I love pictures of old cars from back in the day anyway. Stuff from the 80s, 90s. If the picture's one of those weird ones that came from the developers that had the corners already cut off and it's already yellow, those are just the coolest,
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I would have taken more pictures of my cars back in the day.
I still can't believe that you don't have any.
Yeah. I think I have some pictures of the last 64 I ran. But I don't think I have any of. I shouldn't say that. I mean, I'm sure my wife has got like those plastic Rubbermaid totes full of pictures. So I'm sure in there's probably something. But offhand, I don't really remember having them. But it sat in my front yard for a while with a sign on it after I won. So, but I always thought that was just did it.
It was cool. So while we've got this, where'd it go? There we go. Let's run through this stuff real quick here before we get out of here for the weekend. Coming up next week, we're a little over a week away from the drop dead count for the Kings of Old School Derby Banquet and Swap Meet. The annual Swap Meet and Derby Party is going to be a catered event with DJs and entertainment in the ballroom at Tioga Downs on West River Road in Nichols. Elliott Motorsports, MOP Derby Products, SMW, Jeffy's Fab Farm Hardcore, scheduled to attend or at least offer giveaway door prize products, no charge for vendors in the vendors buyers area. It's $50 for the adults to get into the ballroom, $30 for children. That's banquet access. The preliminary count was already due. We've passed that deadline. Now we're looking at February 15th for the final count. There's a special room rate, $139 a night. Mention the Kings of Old School 2022 Derby Banquet, 1 p.m. start time, maximum 300 people. That's going to be February 26th, 2022. Smith Metalworks is going to be hosting their annual, this is the second one, Demolition Derby Expo, April 8th to 9th, Mercer. It's going to include several seminars, which is going to feature collaborative efforts. Also, there's going to be the collaborative rule meeting. A bunch of vendors are going to be on hand. A full vendors list is going to be available. It's a live document, so they're still adding to it. Various promotions are going to be there as well on the smithmetalworks.info webpage. Smash It, Iron City, Hardcore, Toast, Deadman, and more. Times specifically are TBA still while they finish all that stuff. Casey's probably going to be on at the beginning of next month to sort of give us the final rundown as we're 30 days out at that point. Follow along on Facebook.com/Smith Metalworks, WORX for details, or visit the website smithmetalworks.info. Experience and passion second to none. And let's see, Capital City Carnage. I can't believe we're like a month away from that. It's coming up so fast. Limited weld, straight stock weld, 10,000 to win. Each of those weld compacts, 2-man extreme, front wheel drive hobo stock, front wheel drive minivan, hobo front wheel drive, hobo youth, 2,500 each of those, and they're paying the top 4. The heat draws are on the 3rd. Limited weld and street stock weld heats are on the 4th with the front wheel drive hobos. And then the double program on March 5th, that's championship Saturday there, 10 a.m. is limited weld and street stock weld consi, the front wheel drive youth cars and the weld compacts. And then 7 o'clock, 2-man extreme, front wheel drive van, hobos, limited weld feature, and the street stock weld feature. Online for details, capitalcitycarnage.com. That's March 3, 4, and 5, 2022, and it's hosted by Smash It Demolition Derbies. The Bash for Cash is May 27th through the 29th, 2022. Online, smashitderby.com. That is the 3-man team pro stock event, 15,000 to win, and the turn back the clock class, 12,000 to win. Smash It Minis, 10,000 to win. May the 27th is the pro stock team heats and the Smith Metalworks youth full size. The turn back the clock heats are going to kick off a marathon day for May the 28th, and then May the 29th is championship day. The relic class, the pro stock mini, the Smash It full size, the team feature, the turn back the clock feature, all on May the 29th. The 28th, Frank the Tank, and is the likely headline on the 28th. And real quick, while we are here to make that stop, RPM Group, Progressive Waste Management Company, and I hear there's some new signage coming to RPM Group. I didn't know. That was kind of cool. Progressive Waste Management Company in Owego. RPM Group started in 2016 and now boasts 2 roll-offs and 6 garbage trucks, fully certified and licensed. RPM Group customer base has grown to more than 3,000 people, offering curbside trash and recycling services, asbestos abatement, asbestos surveys, interior and exterior demolition, lead renovation, mold remediation, mold assessment, dumpster rental. Call 607-223-8714 or visit rpmgroupny.com for more details. And of course, right here front and center, Jeffy's Fab Farm. I want to let you hear a little bit about what Jeffy's up to.
Jeffy's Fab Farm in Fredericksburg, Virginia specializes in all of your demolition derby needs. We've got you covered from bumper to bumper. Whether you need headers, shifters, harnesses, fueling systems, or complete turnkey setups, Jeffy'sFabFarm.com can help. We've even got a Canadian branch to help our northern customers. With over 16 years in the industry, we've got the knowledge and experience needed to provide the highest quality parts and put you in the winner's circle. Visit our website today or call Jeff at 540-907-3390. Fabby says the best parts come from the farm. Jeffy'sFabFarm.com.
And there you have it. Anything else we didn't get to?
No, it was a nice nostalgia show.
A little bit.
Talk about some of the old stuff. We mentioned right before we went on air. I think this was the first weekend in a while there wasn't a derby.
Yeah, and I mean we're talking months, right?
Yeah,
there wasn't.
Yeah, literally. This is the first time in quite a while there was, there wasn't a derby. But guys are building. See pictures of stuff getting ready. I know there's a show, South Carolina in March.
Well, this coming weekend is Carolina's Blue Ridge Bash. That's in Wytheville, Virginia. That's where Mark is trying to get off to. March 18th and 19th, that's Urban Destruction in Sturgis. April 15th and 16th is Dead Man's No Mercy 2 in Cumberland. Spring Explosion is April 22nd and 23rd, and then Hardcore's Compacts Throwdown is April 30th. You can stay up to date online with the 527UnifiedSeries.com. Point standings, Ty Richards still out in front. Corey Buddy second, Michael Kelly third, Trevor Jones fourth, Foogie Barnes and Bill Miller tied for fifth, and then 8 drivers tied for seventh with 10 points each. The campaign for apparel for the Unified Point Series is coming to an end. Derby Tees did all the artwork. Good looking stuff. We did share the link in the comments, so by all means, if you can, take a peek at that and keep Mark and Michelle and your thoughts. They're it looks like they might be headed for a long couple days.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, but it was. I'm glad that Hank was able to tune in. Hopefully we can dive into this a little bit further. It's one of those, like, I was talking a little bit with Kyle Holman in Nebraska, and he thought it was really cool when Demolition Derby and Figure 8, Aux Powers Demolition Derby game came out, and I think I think he had a car in it, but Slamman, Mike Decker, he had Imperials in there, or excuse me, he had a character in that game, but they weren't exactly true to life paint schemes, so to say, and they all had nicknames, so you kind of had to be on the inside track to know who they were, but sure as anything, to have Rick be considered for that means a lot to everybody up here, big time.
For sure.
Sam Bando's got paint in the game. Tyler Ford has a car in the game. Lee Sager. Lee Sager's the guy that introduced us to it, and he's got multiple different skins. Corey Beal, Darren Zoff, the Schaffners. Luke's got a paint design in the game. So, with the Midwest feel and all these different characters. Jesse Myers, of course, he's got a bunch of different skins in the game, and the one of them is his brown car that he ran up at home in the Dakotas. But I don't know. It just feels like a big step for Rick, and I think he would be just beside himself to know that car, and and the thing's gonna say Robbie and Tommy on the hood and the fenders and the whole deal. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, Rick was so happy. That when he came up here and brought his servo, his heavy-duty servo,
yeah.
And him and Mike Brown talked Imperials and new stuff and this and that. And, Rick was just about Derbian. Great family guy, great dad. But, he really loved Derbian. And, it made him happy that Sony, I think that's still to this day, the highest watched in studio show. So and if Rick knew that, he would, when he passed, he knew how popular it had been, and he was happy about it. It made him feel good because we, obviously we've talked a lot about it, and Rick was, just larger than life. just great dude. And
pride without ego, if it makes sense.
Oh gosh, yes, yeah. He was definitely proud of his accomplishments and what he could do, and yeah, but there definitely wasn't any ego there. Just and that smile, he had the most mischievous smile, But yeah, it's great. I for our area, I couldn't imagine anyone more perfect than Rick to have something like that on a box car. So very cool. Glad that's happening. But I'd rather trade the video game than have Rick here with us. So
every bit of it.
But
yep. If you haven't, Rick's page is still up on Facebook, and if you ever wonder, how much of a family, as much as he loved Derby, how much of a family man, how much he loved being a dad, it is all in those pictures. It is just so cool when you scroll through that, all the pictures. There's this one picture of Robbie holding up I think it's a raccoon or something. The raccoon skin, all the fish pictures. There's one picture where Robbie's holding on. I think it was Robbie that was holding on to 4 perch. There was another big perch that from when they had gone fishing and Little League games, and then you start getting into the stuff that you might not expect to see it. Rick posted a picture of a drawing that one of the boys did. I don't know who did it, but it was a line full of cars, and all of them had little roof signs on them. And then there was a yellow 33R that looked like a monster truck with big flames shooting out the stacks and everything.
That's awesome.
It was really cool.
Kind of show what they thought of their dad.
Yeah, I think so.
That's pretty cool.
It was awesome. It was really cool to kind of weed through that and reconnect a little bit with Josh and learn about the cars that were left over and find out that there was so much. I know you can't save them all, and the logistics of putting together a quote-unquote Derby museum are very, very tall. But it would just be so cool to walk around and take pictures, to look at all the cars that Hank has back there, because you can tell so many stories with that.
Oh, yeah.
Not just what happened on the track, what happened on the lift.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It would be, everybody, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that everybody, has a Derby story or a favorite car or, a car about, a story about this car, that car did this and this car, I remember that. And, it's just, it's nostalgic, and that's, it's all part of the game. It's all part of why we do what we do. And we love the sport so much.
Tommy broke his arm. that was the same day that Hank bought that Imperial off of Rick.
Really?
It was the same day.
Wow.
So
Crazy.
It seems like there's a don't bend my arm anymore joke about pricing on an Imperial there. I can't piece it together under pressure though.
Oh, that's
Rob
funny.
Oswalt checking in. Yeah, it was very cool, and I know hopefully this lights a fire under Hank a little bit too, and he'll get out there and do some.
Hank's retiring. I saw him last year at Bash, and he told me they were getting out of Derby, and he was going to just build transmissions.
Yep. You know the conversation that I had with Hank the first time that I met Hank to know Hank. I remember when he had the purple, the pink, the pink wagon that said Headhunter Motorsports on it, the Metal Destruction, and I thought that was cool in its own right. And it turns out, side note, the gray wagon that ran there, that not Steve Meek, I can't remember who had it. Maybe Nate Clemens. No,
I don't remember.
Nate. Can't think of Nate's last name. Drives 23 or 24. I think he had a wagon that made its rounds. At one point, Eric Remington had that at his house, and I'm like, "What are you doing with this? It's a round back. This kind of isn't your thing."
Scrap feller, take it to the yard.
No, it went on to somebody else because nothing gets scrapped. It just gets passed around. Hopefully this. That conversation I had in Dunkirk with Hank, knowing who Hank was with a face, he said, "Yeah, that was a lot of fun, but this is my last year." That was 10 years ago.
Yeah. He's definitely in the sport for life, man. He's a lifer.
That's a good point. Ed Fay says half the time you won't remember who won, but you always remember that car or that one man show.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty true. Hank says all Derby drivers lie. Smith. That's it. Smith. It was Nate Smith.
I can't remember. We were somewhere, and to be honest, I don't know if it was Corey and I were talking or who it was, but we got talking about winning derbies, or and that could get you addicted, or when you hear that crowd, when the crowd noise is louder than the cars,
right?
And I'm like, yeah, because I've had that happen a lot, and I mean, I'm just, I may not have won a lot, but a lot of times people have walked away from Waterloo either going, man, that kid's an idiot, or man, I don't know why he drove like that, or man, he put on the show. But there's nothing like it. When you hear the crowd over the top of the roar of those cars, that's addicting, man. I'm telling you, that is addicting. But yeah, it'll keep you going. If you're winning or you can hear the crowd, it's either way, it becomes an addiction.
Sure does help. Awesome. Well, we've got more drivers that we're going to be getting to. Again, get out there and support the Derbies. Carolina's Blue Ridge Bash is this weekend in Wytheville. Hopefully Mark can make it. Check that out. All the results will be coming back to you right here next Monday when we're back for episode number 300 whatever.
88.
We're working through the 80s. Yeah, we're working towards the 90s now.
It won't be long. We'll be on the big 400.
Yeah. Everybody loves to celebrate their 400th birthday, right? Isn't that
400 something, 400th hit, 400th homer, 400th, I don't know.
So that'll be hanging out there around the corner as well. But any final thoughts?
No, man. Just like I said, it was fun to talk about. After you texted me last night, I kind of laid there thinking about stuff, and it was neat to. I mean, except that I didn't get to sleep, but that's a different story. But just going back through, different thoughts and different cars, and the different Imperials. I think I ran a total of 5 Imperials.
Were they all
3 box frames and 2 subframers?
The wagons didn't have Imperial subframes in them.
Nope, never had a car never had a sedan with a subframe in it. But
what? You never had a Chrysler that had an Imperial subframe in it?
Mm-mm.
I got you.
No, I never replaced one with the other.
Interesting. Well, I bet you Hank would have some tips if you're ever wondering.
No doubt. There is one. If I had to do over, I would. I got a 60, I think it was a 68 Newport from Walt Mitchell. And there was no rust on that thing front to back. Beautiful car. And I wish I had to do. I would like to put an Imperial.
That comes to the line next to the Red 300.
Oh,
It was 3 rows back off to the right.
no, this one I think I caught like when he pulled it in, and it was he didn't even get it out back.
That's why you were able to get it, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And that was one of those ones I stole. I mean, I think $100, and I got 65 back if I brought the car back afterwards. I miss those days.
It's a different world.
Different world.
Different world.
7 o'clock, man. It's that time.
Sounds good to me. We gotta go get some stuff for Valentine's Day parties at school this week. So
Don't forget your Valentine.
We're gonna get it. We're gonna get. Oh, it's for Kelsey's class.
Well, your Valentine, duh.
Yeah, love is a crush for people too afraid to die alone. And on that note, we're out. Have a great week. We'll see you next Monday.
The Crash Course Live is presented by
Smash It Demolition Derby, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at SmashItDerby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, host of Maymania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at StirringDirtRacing.com.
Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York.